Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 186 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host, Joey Coastman. He's back. I'm joined by Mr. Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. Yourself?
Very good, my friend. Very good. Right, let's dive straight into the review part of the show, into part one. We're going to start here at the Fraport Arena in Frankfurt, Germany. One or two fights to mention over here. Obviously, the young prospect, I think he's only 23. His name's Abbas Barao. I said it on last week's show. He's a Sauerland promoted fighter. He beat Carlos Molina last time out. It was very, very controversial, in my opinion, especially one or two of the scorecards. They were shocking. But anyway, he got in here against Ali Funica, a guy who had a record of 40 wins, 10 losses and 3 draws. Funica hadn't really boxed at a fantastically high level. He had a bit of a padded record to actually pick up 40 wins, but he came unstuck here. He got TKO'd in the 5th round, so a good win there from Abbas Barao. Certainly gaining that experience. The experience difference between the two was incredible. I mean, Barao only had 5 fights. Funica, like I say, had 53 fights, so that's over 10 times the amount of fights. I mean, that, quite frankly, doesn't happen, so credit there to Barao. Certainly one to look out for in the future. Also on that bill, the Swedish Anthony Yigit, he moved to 23 wins. He's got the 1 loss and the 1 draw. A TKO also in the 5th round against his opponent Sandro Hernandez, now 15-8 with 3 draws. That's it for that one there. Moving out now to Manchester at the Victoria Warehouse in Lancashire, United Kingdom. Just one fight really to mention. It went under the radar massively. Kez Ashfaq, the Olympian, he moved to 6-0, a knockout in the very first round against Stefan Sachev, who's now 5-21 with 1 draw. It was a right hand upstairs for Ashfaq. It ended proceedings very quickly. Like I say, first round knockout. He's 6-0 Ashfaq. You know, I've said before that Joe Cordina doesn't really get the hype that Lawrence Okoli and Josh Kelly and all the, Buatsi, all the rest of them. He doesn't get the same kind of level of hype, Joe Cordina. Whereas Kez Ashfaq is probably the most unpopular 2016 Olympian. I mean, it's crazy, really. He's completely going under the radar fighting here at the Victoria Warehouse. But a very quick win there. I thought he was actually signed with Matchroom, but perhaps he's not. Moving out now stateside, 2 bills to mention. Let's start with the Stockton Arena card in California, USA. Over here we got to see Artur Beterbiev moved to 14-0, a knockout in the 5th round against Radivoj Kaladzic, also known as Hot Rod. His only loss actually came on points in a split decision loss over 8 rounds to now WBC light heavyweight world champion Marcus Brown. So it was a very controversial loss. A lot of people felt that he nicked it on the night. That was his one blemish. And like I say, Artur Beterbiev, he went in there. There was a few interesting moments. I think Beterbiev kind of sometimes can lunge, sometimes he can kind of fall over his feet coming in, and you're begging for his opponent to throw an uppercut and take a step back, but he didn't really cause too many problems to Beterbiev, did Mr. Hot Rod. But another brutal win, really, for Beterbiev. He remains 14-0, undefeated, all 14 by knockout. He's got that 100% knockout ratio. It was obviously a defence of his IBF World Light Heavyweight title. Kaladzic was down in round 3 and, like I say, stopped in the 5th round. The main event over there, though, I think it was the main event anyway, Jerwin Ancajas, he moved to 31-1 with 2 draws. He took on Ryuichi Funai. I'm not going to lie, I didn't really know too much about him before the bout, but he was a tough guy. He put up a tough, brave effort, really. He didn't really win anything, but he he put up a brave effort and he was actually stopped in the 7th round on the advice of the ringside physician, if I'm not mistaken. So a win there for Ancajas. That's win number 31. He's got the 1 loss and, of course, the 2 draws. That's it for that one. Moving out now, though, to the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA. Let's start with the undercard over here. Saddam Ali. I couldn't believe this one. 27-2 going in. Of course, former world champion at light middleweight. He took on Anthony Young. A bit of a prospect. 20-2 Anthony Young was going into that fight. But, of course, Anthony Young hadn't fought anyone even close to the level of Saddam Ali. And it was quite shocking, to be honest with you. A knockout in the 3rd round. Saddam Ali while it lasted, it was quite a kind of back-and-forth type fight. I think that Anthony Young was getting the better of it, but he just couldn't stand up to his punches in that 3rd round, and Ali took so many shots without answering back, and the referee was forced to jump in and stop it. So that's a mega upset there. That's almost like Linares when he got stopped in the 1st round, was it, or the 2nd round recently in that fight against a guy who really shouldn't have troubled him. It was that kind of thing, it's weird. So yeah, a big upset there in favour of Anthony Young. He beats former world champion Saddam Ali. I think he even did it quicker than Jaime Munguia did it when he dethroned him of the belt. But that one, by the way, was down at 147 because Saddam Ali decided to make the move back down. But yeah, that's it for that one. Also on the bill, Lamont Roach was in a real test. It was his 20th professional outing. His record's now 19-0 with that 1 draw. A unanimous decision over 10 rounds against Jonathan Oquendo, 30-6 now. It was for the WBO International and WBO NABO Super Featherweight titles. Oquendo had a point deducted in the 8th round for using his head. But yeah, a quite close fight, to be completely honest there. Also, Virgil Ortiz Jr., I think I said it on last week's show with Barry Jones, that he had really gone under the radar. A good prospect. I've been hearing a lot of promising things about him. He took on former, I think he was interim champion Mauricio Herrera. Good fighter to a certain degree. Like I said many times about him, he's a friend of the show. He's been on before, and he is a guy that ends up on the wrong side of a controversial decision quite often. But yeah, he actually got KO'd in 3 rounds by Virgil Ortiz Jr. And that is a mega statement there. 13-0 now, him. Also on the bill, Joseph Diaz moved to 29-1. I didn't really watch this one. It was a TKO in the 7th round over Freddie Fonseca, who's now 26-3 with 1 draw. Fonseca was also down in the 6th round. That one was for the vacant WBA Gold Super Featherweight title. Not a fan of that at all. For a slightly more serious belt, I guess you'd say, the interim WBA World Super-Middleweight title. We saw a friend of the show, John Ryder. Hopefully he'll be coming on this week's show. I've reached out to him, so hopefully he'll be on in this week's show, like I say. His record going in 27-4. He took on the unbeaten Bilal Akkawy from Australia, a man that I'm hearing, or I was certainly hearing before this fight, that he was a future world champion for Australia. Like I say, 20-0 with 1 draw. The TKO came in the 3rd round for John Ryder. Akkawy was down twice in that 3rd round, and in the end, he kept getting back up, credit to him, but in the end, the referee, Jay Nady, had seen enough. A very, very good win once again there for Mr. Ryder. I'm over the moon for John Ryder. It seems like he's moved up to 168 and he's just become totally rejuvenated. To actually think that he once got stopped at British level by Nick Blackwell is shocking. To think what he's actually gone on to achieve since then. Obviously he had the close fight with Rocky Fielding. That one could have gone either way. He's had various fights now in a row pretty much where it's been a 50-50 fight in my opinion, and he has won every single one by knockout, and I'm going to go over them actually. So obviously since losing to... Let's go right back to that Blackwell loss in 2015. He got knocked out in the 7th round. He beat tough journeyman Adam Jones. Then he beat Sergei Kamitsky, the Brit Basher. That was quite impressive. He was able to nullify him there. He got cut early on. He beat him. Then he beat a journeyman on points. Fair enough. Then he lost a close one to Jack Arnfield. Then, of course, he took on Adam Etches. We forget about Adam Etches. He's a good fighter. He never boxed after this, by the way, Adam Etches. He only had the one loss, and that was to Kamitsky when he got brutally knocked out. And, yeah, he fought John Ryder. That one, on paper, was a real 50-50 fight. He beat him pretty handily. Then he took on Rocky Fielding. Like I say, it was a split decision over 12 rounds. Rocky went on to become a world champion after that. John Ryder, like I say, maybe perhaps won that fight. Then he took on Patrick Nielsen, ranked number one in the WBA, or number two. I think he was number one. And John Ryder knocks him out on the undercard of Groves and Cox. It was a brutal knockout. Then he takes on Jamie Cox and he stops him in 2 rounds. Then he takes, so that's quicker than George Groves could do it. And then he takes on Andrei Sorokin, an undefeated Russian. We're hearing lots of good things about his amateur career and stuff like that. Sorokin got knocked out in the 7th round after having quite a bit of success early. Then he takes on this guy that is being tipped to be a future world champion. He knocks him out as well. He's coming off 4 knockouts in a row now, John Ryder, and most of them have come early. Like I say, the 5th round, the 2nd round, the 7th round, and the 3rd round. So he has improved incredibly since moving up to 168. So for me, he is actually the most improved fighter in Britain, John Ryder. I'm absolutely over the moon for him. Like I say, hopefully he'll be joining us sooner rather than later on this week's show. I think he probably will come on, whether it's the first interview or the second. I'm not quite sure at this moment in time. But yeah, that's it for that one. And the top of the bill, the final fight to mention, Ayaz, I'm going to come to you first here. Saul Canelo Alvarez, 52 wins now. He's got the 1 loss. He's got the 2 draws, and in the other corner, Mr. Daniel Jacobs, 35-3. Daniel Jacobs, of course, brought his IBF world title along. His WBA world title along. Was he the WBA or was he IBF? I'm forgetting now. IBF, I thought so. And obviously, Canelo, he brought his WBA and WBC world titles. A 12-round unanimous decision there for Canelo Alvarez. Obviously, Daniel Jacobs at the weigh-in, Ayaz. Of course, he made the weight, and then they had the same day weigh-in in which he got penalised heavily for weighing over the limit to try and give himself an advantage that in the end didn't work out at all and just ended up costing him around about $1 million, which is quite shocking, to be honest with you. But what did you make of the fight itself? I felt like Canelo was the rightful winner.
Yep, I agree with you there. I mean, Canelo Alvarez was the rightful winner, obviously. The fight really didn't live up to his high expectation, to be fair. From the start of the round, Canelo was jabbing him, moving him, boxing him, hitting him. This was from round 1 to 5. In the later rounds, Jacob was obviously jabbing him as well, hitting him. Jacob hit him with a right hand, and Canelo Alvarez didn't even take it, just took it right on the chin. Obviously,
left hook, if that's the same punch, yeah.
Sorry, left hook, yeah, and Canelo just took it like it's nothing. He's like a robot, a machine to me, in my opinion. Obviously, and then in the 10th, 11th round, Jacobs did win the round with the jab and his work rate, but in the end, Canelo nicked it. And I thought it was a typical Canelo performance to me. The fight really didn't live up to his expectation, to be fair, and I think obviously the rightful winner, Canelo, won at the end, but he's now obviously the IBF champion as well.
Yeah, he is, yeah. I mean, another point gained for yourself and the listeners, Ayaz. You couldn't be torn on the prediction last week. You both went with Canelo to win on points. My analysis of the fight real quick. I mean, the first round, again, it was a nothing round in my opinion. It was a bit of a feeling out kind of round. Obviously, the size difference was so unbelievable. Just looking at Jacobs next to Canelo, Jacobs looked absolutely huge, and Jacobs was happy to box off the back foot. Canelo was, of course, holding the centre of the ring. But like I say, it was really a nothing round. The second round, that was where Daniel Jacobs looked a little bit flashy when he was letting his hands go in little combinations, but they were few and far between, and I think that Canelo's jab in that second round was key, and he would double up the jab without necessarily throwing it, both jabs to the head. He'd throw one to the head and one to the body, and that was clever work. It was confusing for Jacobs at that point. Not too much really happened. It didn't really live up to the expectations, I think. I mean, I always thought Canelo would win pretty easy. I even said I felt like he could even stop Jacobs late on, which obviously didn't happen. The fourth round, you know, it was brilliant defence from Canelo. His defence was absolutely excellent. Jacobs was second best at everything in that fourth round. Canelo really looked a level above him. Going into the eighth round, though, for the first time in the fight, Jacobs was able to back Canelo up. It wasn't for too long, but he did manage to do it. He landed some nice combinations, mainly to the body of Canelo. I felt like it was a little bit too late, but you know, it was encouraging stuff for Jacobs even late on in the fight. But once again, Canelo's head movement was sublime. In the ninth round, that was where that left hook landed, Ayaz, if I'm not mistaken. It was a big left hook. Canelo took it without much problems. Jacobs did seem like he was beginning to find a bit of a rhythm, even though it was as late on as the ninth round. And in the 10th round, Danny became more competitive in that round, and even that ninth round, he was competitive. But I wasn't really necessarily scoring the fight. But even though he was competitive, it didn't really seem like he was always doing enough to nick the rounds. I still felt like the better work came from Canelo, but I respected the effort from Jacobs late on in the fight after not a fantastic start. But yeah, I didn't score it. I kind of wish I did, because everyone seems to have different scorecards. It's like you couldn't possibly get it wrong. Someone somewhere will agree with your scorecard. I've even seen people giving it to Jacobs by 2 rounds, and I think even one boxing writer gave it to Jacobs 8-4 on first glance. I mean, that's unreal. But yeah, the rightful man won for me, and it's 97-97 on the prediction league now. Ayaz, between yourself and the listeners, more predictions at the very end of the show. But that's it for the review part. Just before we wrap up part 1, the last thing to do is to welcome our very first guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning WBC Featherweight Champion of the world. It is, of course, Mr. Gary Russell Jr. Gary, welcome back on the show, sir.
Oh, wow, man. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure having you on. It truly is, Gary. So we last spoke, like I say, back in May of last year. It was fight week for the Joseph Diaz Jr. fight. I know it kind of seems like old news now, but obviously it was your last fight. How did you assess your performance last time out?
I gave myself about a B- when I fought Joshua Diaz. Still thought it was a great performance. I think I injured one of my hands early in that particular fight, and was still able to make the adjustment to get the W. You know.
And you did say to me before the fight that you'd be massively disappointed in yourself if you were unable to get a stoppage. I mean, perhaps you underestimated the toughness of Joseph Diaz, but you did take his O. It was a brilliant performance. Were you disappointed in your performance? I think if you were, you'd be being quite harsh on yourself, Gary.
No, I was definitely disappointed. Like I said, I wanted to get Jojo up out of there. I wanted to. I hurt my hand. I hit him directly on top of his head. In I believe like the second or third round. And that right there was one of the things that kind of held me back from being able to get him up out of there. I had to take some of the steam off of my punches, you know, because I hurt my hand. I hit him directly on top of his head. But we still got a W.
Absolutely, the all-important factor. Your next fight, like we say, it takes place next weekend in New York at the Barclays Center. In the other corner, the former Super Bantamweight World Champion Kiko Martinez. Us Brits have seen Kiko a few times. He, of course, boxed Carl Frampton twice. He boxed Scott Quigg, and most recently he boxed the new IBF Featherweight World Champion Josh Warrington. But tell me, Gary, what do you know about Kiko? Do you know much about the guy?
I know much about him other than the things that you just told me. You know, other than the things you just said. I know he's going to be physically tough. He knows that he's getting in there with Mr. Gary Russell Jr., so I'm pretty sure he's going to prepare himself for the best of his ability. But I plan on taking care of him as well.
And you're right there. He's a tough guy. He's known for that. He's only been stopped though by Scott Quigg, Carl Frampton, and Leo Santa Cruz. So basically, he gets stopped against the true world level fighters. So like you said last time, you were disappointed if you didn't stop Joseph Diaz. I'm guessing you'll probably be double disappointed if you aren't able to get Kiko out of there next weekend.
Of course, but I can tell you one thing: regardless of the situation, I'm gonna come out victorious.
For sure. Since we last spoke, I mentioned just there is a new world champion in your weight class. It's Josh Warrington from the UK. He's looking really good. 2 back-to-back wins over Lee Selby and Carl Frampton. Have you seen anything of Josh, Gary? I know you don't really watch boxing too much, but is he a guy that you've seen? Have you got any interest in boxing him at all in the future?
Of course. I want to compete against any of the world champions. Anyone else that's a world champion I wanted to compete against. The funny thing is, it's just kind of difficult for me to get these world champions to be willing to put their title on the line and get in the ring and compete against me. So that's been the issue when it comes to a lot of these world champions.
And I remember, again, when we did last speak, you said that you were pretty much, willing to even move to perhaps catch weights to make these big fights happen. I think you said...
That's right.
You said from anywhere to 126 to 140. Yeah. At this point in time, Gary, are you any closer to kind of, having that goal? Is it to try and move up and win a world title in a different weight class? Is it a unification? What would you prefer out of those options?
I mean, if it was up to me, once again, like I say, I would love to get in unification bout with Leo Santa Cruz or any of the other world champions in my division. But, I mean, if I can't get that fight after this one, God willing, we get past this guy, because we never underestimate anyone. But God willing, we get past this guy. If we can't get that fight, then I do plan on moving up in weight, challenging the champion at 130. I think his name is Berchelt, who has the title at 130. If we can't get none of these world champions, I'm going to be moving up to challenge Berchelt for his WBC world title.
Yeah, Miguel Berchelt. Yeah, that would be a cracking fight, actually. Do you have interest? I want to throw a random name out here at you, Gary, and you can answer this or you can refuse to. Gervonta Davis, 130. That's a fight I really like.
Of course. That's definitely someone else that's in our sights. I think he's a good fighter, but I think that he's somewhat overestimated. Based upon the fact that I don't feel as though he competed against anyone. I believe that all the guys that he's been competed against wasn't really too much of a challenge. He's fighting these guys that as soon as he hits them, they fall down. He's not fighting anyone that's going to really give him any opposition. Someone is going to really give him some resistance. That's definitely someone that we will compete against as well.
I'd love to see that fight come to fruition, if I may say so. I want to also mention, once again, your 2 brothers are boxing on the same card as you. They're both still undefeated. You kind of gave us a bit of a lowdown last time on their progression. I just really want to kind of ask you the same question. How are they both getting on? Of course, 2 guys with real promising futures in the sport.
They're coming along wonderful. Antoine as well as Antonio Russell. Antoine as well as Antonio Russell. They're both competing on this card with me on May 18th. I can't think of their opponents' names right offhand, but these guys are going to be in for a rude awakening because my younger brothers, they are extremely hungry. They're not going to let anything stand in their way.
Yeah, in particular, I like Gary Antoine Russell's opponent. Marcos Mojica, his name is. He's 16-3 with 2 draws, but he's only been stopped early by the 2016 Olympic gold medalist, a guy called Daniil Yelusinov. He stopped him in 3. So, of course, your brother, Antoine Russell, he's 8-0 with 8 knockouts, so obviously a big puncher. I mean, if he can get the job done in similar fashion as that 2016 Olympic gold medalist, then that's a real statement there. So I really like that fight. But, of course, best of luck to you and your 2 younger brothers, Gary. And just finally, before I let you go, have you got any closing message to your UK supporters from over here that listen to you and support your journey?
Oh my God, I just want to tell the fans that's out there for the UK that love my work that I'm greatly appreciative, for them liking the work that I do. And I tell people, man, ass whoopings are universal. It doesn't matter where you come from or what your ethnicity is, but none of that. Whatever language you speak, when you get in the ring with Mr. Gary Russell Jr., you understand what's going on and what's happening.
What a fantastic way to end the interview. Listen, Gary, it has been a real pleasure speaking with you once again. Thank you for your time. Best of luck for the 18th, and I'm sure that we'll catch up sometime after, my friend.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate you for having me once again.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part. It hasn't been done properly recently, Ayaz, because it's been me doing it, but I want you to take it away. What have we been missing?
Yes, Golovkin will now be trained by Jonathan Banks.
Yeah, Jonathan Banks, friend of the show. He's been on enough times. One of our very first guests ever back in 2015. Jonathan Banks, a real nice guy. I'm hoping to try and get him on again very soon to talk about Golovkin, linking up with him. It seemed to really take the boxing world by shock. I mean, it did for me. I was absolutely stunned when I saw that. I think it was Kugan Cassius who tweeted it out first. I saw it and thought, whoa, is he joking or what? I mean, obviously the connection is that he used to train Vladimir Klitschko. Vladimir Klitschko is associated with Tom Loeffler. Tom Loeffler is associated with Gennady Golovkin. You'd imagine that's how the scenario came around, and I will be sure to ask these questions to Jonathan Banks. I've reached out to him, so hopefully he comes on the show. But yeah, I'm pleased for Jonathan Banks, because after Vladimir hung up the gloves, he didn't really have anything to do, because he actually stopped boxing himself to be Vladimir's trainer, pretty much because being Vladimir's trainer earned more money than boxing himself. Then Vladimir hung up the gloves, and Jonathan Banks, I think, was in two minds about if he was going to try and make a comeback, because obviously he didn't really have that big, super huge payday. I mean, he's still training Cecilia Baracus, probably the pound for pound number 1 in women's boxing, but of course we don't need to sit here talking about the earning difference. I mean, it's not a conversation worth discussing, really. The difference in the money that he'd have been making in the corner of Vladimir to the corner of Cecilia Baracus is just not in the same league. But, he was doing that, and, he went under the radar. A lot of people lost interest in him because he didn't really have any other guys of note. And now he's got Golovkin, so the spotlight is back on JB, and we shall try to get him on. Nice guy, all the best to him. I hope it works well for the pair of them.
Yes, Tommy Coyle will face Chris Algieri on the undercard, Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz.
Yeah, I mean, look, Chris Algieri, you'd probably say, is at the tail end of his career. We had him on the show around about Christmas time, and he said that he had a little bet with himself when making his comeback that if he lost a few rounds, he would actually go back into retirement again, pretty much. I don't think he ever officially went into retirement, but he wasn't going to box again. He won the fight. I think he's had a fight since then where he got cut or something like that. So it does seem like he's getting to the tail end of his career. It does seem like he doesn't really have that hunger that he once had. Tommy Coyle, again, he should be at the back end of his career. He's been around for a long time, Coyle. He's been in some tough fights. Chris Algieri's had a couple of tough fights, not as many, I don't think, as Tommy Coyle. It's hard to say, because obviously you think about Chris Algieri when he took on Provodnikov, you think about Chris Algieri when he took on Manny Pacquiao, Amir Khan, but he's only lost really to world level fighters, and Tommy Coyle is not a world level fighter. So if Chris Algieri has anything left in the tank, he should be able to do the job. But, Tommy Coyle can punch, and he'll be well up for this. It's his world title fight, pretty much. And if Chris Algieri overlooks him, it could be, a dangerous thing. It is a banana skin from his point of view. But, yeah, it's an okay fight. I think Coyle loses quite handily, to be honest.
Right, the next fight is that Demetrius Andrade will face Maja Selecki for the WBA middleweight title on June the 29th and at the Dunkin' Donut Center.
The Dunkin' Donut Center. That is somewhere I'd like to visit, to be honest. Not to watch any boxing. I wonder if they actually sell donuts, or it's just owned, this place, by the Dunkin' Donut Company, because that's pretty boring if it is. Take the donuts away from the name of this venue if it has nothing to do with donuts. If you can't get a donut in the venue, then it shouldn't be called the Dunkin' Donut venue, in my opinion, or the Dunkin' Donut Center, because I'm going there for donuts, not for boxing. Some people would choose to eat some donuts instead of watching this fight, to be honest. I think that's a little bit harsh. Demetrius Andrade, good friend of the show, undefeated world champion, one of the toughest guys actually out there. I mean, he had a real shout for being in the pound for pound rankings a few years back. Then, of course, he hit the inactivities, moved up in weight. He's won a world title again. He deserves to be mentioned amongst the pound for pound fighters. Not necessarily top 10, but he is certainly top 15 to top 20. Certainly. He takes on Maciel Selecki, a man that had a tough life and death kind of fight the other week or the other month with Gabe Rosado. That's not encouraging. And obviously, he just about got through that one, Selecki, and his other loss came to Danny Jacobs. I'm expecting Demetrius Andrade to school him, to be honest. I think it's a one-sided fight, that one. That's an easy win there for Demetrius Andrade, in my opinion. I think it's a very pointless world title defence. I'd rather see the Canelo fight. I'd rather see the Billy Joe Saunders fight. I'd rather see the Charlo fight. I'd rather see... let's think of other names at 160. I'd rather see the Golovkin fight. I'd rather see the Mati Korobov fight. There's so many other fights I'd like to see instead of this one, so I'm not hyped for this at all. That's it though. That's it for me on that one, Ayaz.
Yep, and finally, Richard Rickpoff will face Chris Billam-Smith on the undercard. Dillian White versus Oscar Rivas.
Very good fight, by the way, for the cruiserweights. Both men undefeated. Riakporhe, a man managed by Dillian White. And Chris Billam-Smith, I thought he had some kind of contractual agreement with Cyclone Promotions. Perhaps he still does, I'm not sure. But anyway, he's fighting on an Eddie Hearn show here. And he is a good fighter from Bournemouth. I think he resides in Bournemouth at the minute, but he's got a bit of a fan base behind him. And he's a good fighter, like I say. I think he looked pretty good in his last fight, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was... I think I might have been there for it. I think it might have been York Hall, perhaps. I think it was York Hall. Was it on the undercard of Hunter and Broccoli, perhaps? But anyway, good fighter, Chris Billam-Smith. Good fight there, and I'm really looking forward to that one, actually. I'm really looking forward to that one. Is that it for the news?
Yes, that's it for the news.
Thank you very much, Ayaz. Moving over now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start in the Nottingham Arena in the United Kingdom, I should say. I believe it's a next-gen card. The return of Stephen Smith, 25-4, almost the forgotten man, actually, of British boxing. We haven't seen him since he faced that Mexican and his ear was hanging off. I believe that was almost 2 years ago now. Charles Frankham, he finally makes his debut. We've been waiting on that for months. Also on the bill, Terry Harper, the lady managed by or promoted by Steffi Ball, 6-0. She puts her WBC International Female Lightweight title on the line against Claudia Lopez, 25-9. That's 10 2-minute rounds. Also on the bill, Lee Wood. This is the fight of the night, by the way. Lee Wood, 21-1, takes on Ryan Doyle, 17-3 with one draw. That one's for the Commonwealth Featherweight title. Believe me, that is a great fight. Lee Wood, I'd like to try and say with Lee Wood, he's a guy that I want to say he's kind of had a pretty easy-ish way to 20 wins. Or 21 wins, I should say. Because he hasn't really boxed loads of great fighters. I mean, his best win is probably, I'd probably say was Lee Glover or Josh Wow. Obviously, his one loss came by knockout to Gavin McDonnell, who really doesn't knock people out. And like I say, he takes on Ryan Doyle, former holder of the belt. He obviously lost it in his last fight to Jordan Gill back in October. But other than that, Ryan Doyle can punch. Ryan Doyle has got the pedigree. He's mixed it with the likes of Reece Bellotti. He's mixed it with the likes of James Tennyson. He's mixed it with the likes of Isaac Lowe. So I think he's got the better pedigree. I think he's got the better wins. He's got the better names. And for me, he wins the fight probably by knockout. I don't think, it looks good on your resume. If you're fighting Ryan Doyle and you got stopped by Gavin McDonnell, it doesn't look good. Obviously, Gavin is a friend of the show. That's no disrespect to him, but he'll be the first one to say he's not a big puncher. I will say that one was down at super bantamweight, and of course, since then, Lee Wood has moved up. So perhaps getting down to 122 was hard for him because he moved up straight after that fight. And topping that bill, Jordan Gill, 23-0. He puts his WBA International Featherweight title on the line. He's really starting to impress, actually, Jordan Gill, but he takes on here another kind of unknown guy. It's the second unknown fighter, really, in a row for him. In his last fight, he, of course, took on Emmanuel Dominguez. He looked great. He won the third-round knockout. But we didn't really know too much about Dominguez unless you looked a bit deeper. And now he takes on Enrique Tinoco, so it's another unknown. But yeah, this guy Tinoco has a record of 17-5 with 4 draws, 12 knockouts. He hasn't boxed since just over a year, actually, last March. So 14 months out the ring. He beat a guy with a losing record. He went the distance with Devin Haney. That's something to think about there. An 8-rounder there. He lost every round to Devin Haney, the new signing with Matchroom. He's also been in there with prospect Mario Barrios, who I believe is fighting this weekend. That one was 8 rounds. He went with him. He got stopped in 3 rounds by Miguel Roman. Obviously, Roman is a puncher. And aside from that, there aren't really any other standout names. He hasn't really got any good wins or anything like that. Probably another easy win there for Jordan Gill. He'll probably look good. Moving out now to Germany at the Stade Hall. Robin Krasnicki, 49-5, looking for win number 50. He puts his EBU European Super-Middleweight title on the line against prospect Stefan Hartel, who's 17-1. That's a good fight there, by the way. I believe Krasnicki probably wins. He's got the experience on his side, but Hartel's a decent fighter. Moving over now to the Brentwood Centre in Essex, United Kingdom, trying to whiz through this as quick as possible. Harlem Eubanks, 7-0. He's in a 6-rounder, no opponent just yet. Sam Gilly, 7-0, prospect, 6 rounds against Fernando Valencia, a man who has got a record of 8-12. He's only been stopped once. It was by Bradley Skeet in that same venue. Also on that bill, Danny Dignam, 10-0. He takes on Rafał Jakowicz, the Polish fighter, if I'm not mistaken. 50 wins, 22 losses, and 2 draws. And the return of Liam Walsh. He hasn't boxed since losing to Gervonta Davies at the Copper Box in that world title fight. He's back. It's good to see that. He's now joined up with MTK. This is an MTK show, by the way, so shout out to Lee Eaton. Moving out now to the Convention Center in Tucson, Arizona, USA. 2 fights to mention over here. This one's going to be shown on ESPN. It's a top-ranked show. Top in the bill, Miguel Berchelt, 35-1. He takes on Francisco Vargas, 25-1 with 2 draws. Wasn't Vargas the guy that almost sliced off Stephen Smith's ear? Was it him? This one is for the WBC World Super Featherweight title. Emmanuel Navarrete, 26-1. He takes on Isaac Dogbe, 20-1. It is for the WBO World Super Bantamweight title. Can Dogbe try and avenge his only loss? Of course, it's a rematch. Dogbe was just too small in the first fight. He certainly hasn't grown. He's just gone away and tried to work harder and take this man a lot more serious than he did the first time. Can he get the revenge? We'll have to wait and see. He is a friend of the show, so I'd love Isaac Dogbe to do it, but he is very, very small for Super Bantamweight. We've gone to the predictions on that one, Ayaz. Emmanuel Navarrete, he was too big for Dogbe last time out. Can Dogbe pull it back, though, and get a win this time? How do you see this fight playing out?
I'm going to go with Isaac Dogbe to win by points. I'll go back in the British person.
Back in the Brit, okay. Isaac Dogbe on points. I'll check what the listeners said at the end of the show. And the final card to mention, there's 2 here. One's real quick. It's at the Hilton Bayfront in St. Petersburg, Florida, USA. Wilkie Campfort, friend of the show, 25-3. He takes on Jonathan Batista, 18-15, in an 8-round contest there. And the final bill to mention at the Eagle Bank Arena in Fairfax, Virginia, USA. This one a PBC show. We've got prospect Lorenzo Simpson, 3-0. He's in a 4-rounder against Laurent Nelson, who's 5-2. We have Mario Barrios, obviously the brother of Selena Barrios, who fought the other week on the undercard of Prograis and Relic. Obviously, she took her first loss. Barrios, 23-0, undefeated still. 10 rounds against Juan Velasco, 20-1. His one loss actually came to Regis Prograis, and he was able to hit Regis Prograis, probably more often than any other fighter has, so that could be quite interesting. That's a 10-rounder, like I say. Mati Korobov, 28-2. He's in a 10-rounder against Emmanuel Alim, who's 18-1 with one draw. Again, you'd say that Korobov's got that, that pedigree, the amateur pedigree, and the guys he's took on in the pros, like the likes of Andy Lee, the likes of one of the Charlo brothers. You'd say he's got too much for Alim. And the final fight is a brilliant fight, by the way. It is for the IBF, IBO, and WBA Super welterweight titles. Jarrett Hurd, 23-0. He takes on Julian J. Rock Williams, 26-1 with one draw. Of course, the one loss came to Jamal Charlo just before he moved up to middleweight. That's a 12-rounder there. That's a great fight, Ayaz. Jarrett Hurd, J. Rock Williams. Good fight.
Yeah, it's a very good fight, but if I'm going to go with a win, I'm going to go with Jarrett Hurd to win by knockout. I think Jarrett's a very good boxer, and I think Jarrett Hurd's too much power. I think he's going to have a lot of power, and I think he's going to beat him.
Yeah, I think I agree. Once again, we have gone to the predictions. I'll check at the very end of the show to see what the listeners have gone with. But I think J. Rock Williams, of course, he's got that good power, to be honest. And if he can land on Hurd, it could get interesting. But if that doesn't happen, which I don't really expect it to happen, I think Hurd has got a great work rate. He's got a great engine. He's got the size, which is a key factor in any fight that he has. And I think he can overwhelm you. He can bully you. And I think that Julian Williams can sometimes tire late on, and I think that could be his undoing. I think Jarrett Hurd probably wins pretty wide on points, or perhaps even gets a late stoppage, even though, like I say, Julian Williams is a friend of the show, so all the best to him. I'd like to see him do it, to be honest with you, but you can't fault Jarrett Hurd. He seems like he'll fight anyone. He's got the best resume at 154, you'd say, with the names that he's got on his record. I just want to see perhaps one or two unifications if he can get those fights. But that is about it for that one. Just before we wrap up part two, the last thing to do is to welcome our second and final guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Islington icon and the new WBA Interim Super-Middleweight Champion of the world. It is, of course, the Gorilla, Mr. John Ryder. John, welcome back on the show.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for that introduction. Some build-up.
It's a pleasure having you, John. You know that. We last spoke back in October. It's been quite a while. I think it was just before the Sirotkin fight, so a nice kind of barely on your mind now, that win. But please just give us a quick assessment, a couple of words on that night, by the way.
That night was obviously a good win. Little bit complicated. He come out with a different style to I was expecting, a bit more negative. I was expecting to rush forward a bit, but got a nasty cut over the eye in one of the rounds, and got caught with a flush on with an headbutt on the forehead, which threw me off a bit. And just a few, I think, where he comes from a kickboxing background, he was a bit
unorthodox,
very, very unorthodox with his style. So that took me a while to deal with, but got there eventually with a body shot, and that put that to bed.
Yeah, it certainly did. And now the big one, of course, you beat Sirotkin. He was undefeated. Then you stepped into another fight with another undefeated fighter, 2 in a row, as you do. Bilal Akkawy, 20-0 with one draw. I'd actually heard some great things about Akkawy. People actually told me that he would be Australia's next world champion. And I was nervous, I've got to be honest, John. Talk us through that excellent win on the Canelo undercard on Saturday.
Well, you know what? It's funny. Conor Benn said to me a couple of months back, have you seen that Australian, that Bilal Akkawy? And I was like, yeah. I said, yeah, he spars this was like in talk, like, a couple of months ago. I said, yeah, he spars Canelo. He's like, yeah. Conor was like, yeah, he's sick. I was like, all right, Conor, shut up. But then it turns out I'm fighting him. Do you know what I mean? It was fucking mad. But yeah, he's obviously got the good reputation from sparring Canelo. But I was on such a different level the other night that he got dealt with.
He did. What did Conor Benn have to say about that? I'm sure you must have said something. There must have been a bit of banter.
No, do you know what? At the time, I didn't really see him as... He wasn't... My next opponent was David Lemieux, and nothing much more was said on it. Couldn't have been further out of my mind. But Conor Benn obviously knows more about the Australian boxing scene than me, and he was just saying about, have you seen him fight and whatnot, and I was just like, nah, not really seen him, but just heard good things from the Canelo sparring.
Oh, wicked, man. Well, like I say, Conor must be over the moon with that. The knockdowns, obviously the first one, Wasn't it quite a quick and snappy 3-punch combination? It like the TV angle didn't really do many favours. I think it kind of showed the last 2 shots. Was it a 3-punch combination that ended with a right hook, John?
I thought it was a 1-2 right hook, but looking back on it, I think it's a 1-2 right uppercut, right hook. I'm sure there was an uppercut in there somewhere, but yeah, I've got footage somewhere, but I'll have a delve through and send it to you if I can find it. But yeah, I'm sure it was a 4-punch combination, the first one.
Okay. And the second knockdown, that one came from, obviously, you were swarming him kind of thing, but a straight left, I believe, was the punch that put him down. Another excellent knockdown.
Yeah, I mean, I think I hit him with a right hook again, and he seemed to drop, but then he come back up again. And
yeah, he did, yeah.
I hit him with a straight backhand, and he just kind of sunk into the corner.
And credit to Bilal, of course, for getting back up both times. But when he did get back up, you swarmed him and forced the referee to step in. Not often does a referee go to stop the action, but actually be heard saying, "Ooh, good shot," just before formally waving it off.
I think that was a shot he got hit in the chest with. Yeah, but Akkawy threw a left hook, and I stepped back, and he hit the referee straight in the chest with it. So yeah, I think it took the wind out of his sails a bit.
And I want to say this, right? I mean, looking back now, after that Nick Blackwell loss, you went on to take on Sergei Kamitsky, and people weren't sure that you'd beat him, if we're being honest. He had quite a reputation on these shores. It was a 50-50 fight. You beat him. Then, of course, you went on to take on Arnfield. It was a 50-50. Could have gone either way on the night. You didn't get the win on points. Then the Adam Etches fight, another 50-50. A good fighter, Etches was. I think he retired a bit too soon, for my personal opinion, but you beat him.
Yeah, agree.
You beat him fairly comfortable on points. Then the Rocky Fielding fight, another 50-50. You narrowly lost. I mean, it was a split decision. He went on to win a world title. It could have gone either way. Patrick Nielsen, that fight there, I got to be honest, John, I think I said it before. I thought that you'd probably lose that one. I was hearing brilliant things about him. You destroyed him. It was more than a 50-50. The Jamie Cox fight, arguably a 50-50. He'd only lost to George Groves, a world champion. You go and stop him in half the time Groves did. Then the Sorokin fight, another undefeated, highly touted Russian, had the kickboxing background. Unorthodox, as we said, another 50-50. You were probably losing on points at the time, if I'm not mistaken, and then you come back and stop him in the 7th. And then, of course, you were going to have to fight Lemieux, a man that can literally switch your lights off in one shot, a real big puncher. And I actually felt at that point that most fighters do a lot less to go and get a world title shot. I think that you've done some incredible things since the Nick Blackwell loss. I don't think anyone could have seen this coming. And if I'm honest, I was quite happy when the Lemieux fight fell through, John, if I'm being honest, because I think that was too hard of a task to put in front of a world title fight. But in steps this undefeated Australian. I'm hearing he's a future world champion, and you absolutely wipe him out with relative ease. And for these reasons, in my opinion, you're quite clearly the most improved fighter in boxing. That's not just British boxing, it's almost worldwide. To go on to what you've achieved, John, it's unbelievable.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a long, tough journey, but I wouldn't change things for the world. All these experiences and all this letdown and heartbreak of just maybe more determined to do well and succeed.
It is incredible. I think you heard you say something the other day about, what was it, 89-2, your last 4 opponents? Records
combined.
I think
89 wins, 2 losses and 2 draws, I think, in the records combined. So yeah, not bad, is it?
Not bad. I mean, if you chuck in your last 7 opponents, I believe it's 132-4. So that's that's incredible as well. Obviously,
that's mental.
It's mental, John. It is, and it's just unbelievable. What is next for you? I know it's very early days. Obviously, what did you arrive yesterday back in the UK?
Yeah, got back yesterday morning. Just family time, really. My little girl was at school, so I went and picked her up from school at the end of the day and spent time with my partner Nancy, just taking it easy. But I'm sure I'll hear from Eddie this week and the team and see what's next. But there's obviously a big talk with Callum Smith fighting in June 1st, and then I think Canelo's stated that he'd like to fight him and for the title. So who knows? But I'm told that I will get called up for the mandatory soon. So I'm just gonna enjoy the rest, wait patiently, and see where we go, what the next move is.
Is that the likely thing that you'll do when you say just wait patiently, or do you think you'll have to take a fight in the interim period? And if so, will it be another big 50-50 fight? You're having too many 50-50s.
Yeah, do you know what? I mean, if I keep pulling through the 50-50s that I am, do you know what? Give me a couple more, because I'm buzzing at the moment, and I truly believe I can beat anyone. So the bigger the fight, the more I get up for it, and the harder I train, and the more disciplined I am myself. So just do it. Give me the big names, give me the hard fights, and I'll take them.
Yeah, and I should mention, those 50-50s, you're coming off 4 knockouts in a row now. These 50-50s, you've been blowing them out of there. What was it like to watch Canelo from ringside, John? It's obviously everyone's dream to watch a fighter that brilliantly, that close up, and you boxed on the undercard, but of course you were showered and ready to sit in your ringside seat to watch the main event.
Do you know what? It's funny. I was sat there with Tony Sims and my mum and my dad, and a couple of friends around us, but I think my dad was that jet lagged he started falling asleep as they was making their way to the ring, and that's no disrespect to the fighters. He'd fall asleep standing up. But I said to him, you want to liven yourself up? I said, this is the biggest fight of the year, and you're falling asleep for it. So we had a laugh and he apologised, but he said, it was a bit of a dull fight, and I said to him, you're just uneducated about boxing. I was angry that he'd said it was a boring fight. So I said, these are technically 2 of the best super middleweights out there, and what you're watching is like a tactical masterpiece, really. Like it's the hit and not get hit hard. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of the Mexican fans were booing in the first round of my fight, and when I see that they was booing at Canelo and Jay, because I thought, you know what, you just want to see bloodshed, you just want to see blood and guts on the canvas. So I wasn't too disheartened, but I mean, what a technically great showing of boxing. They negated everything everyone done, and everyone's used to seeing Canelo go out there and blast people out there, but he just showed that he weren't going to be blasted out by Canelo, and that he's a more than credible world champion.
Yeah, he truly is. And it's no secret, John, that you're a big family man. You said there that you came back, the first thing you did is went to go and pick up your daughter from school. I think they said on the telecast the other day you've got another daughter on the way?
You've got a son on the way, yeah. August 12th is due, yeah. So that's why my partner couldn't travel out to Vegas. She's no long haul flight, so yeah, heavily pregnant. So that was a bit of a disappointment. But I had a job to do, and she had a job to do back here. So we both got our jobs done, and I'm back now to help out a bit.
Any name yet, John Jr. at all?
Nah, I don't think. She's got one. She said she's got one too many Johns in her life, so she don't want another John. So I think we're still looking through the name books.
And any closing words for you, John, just before we let you go? It is always a pleasure talking, of course. Any closing words for our listeners?
No, just thank you for the support. Your podcast has given me a lot of support. You've constantly been on the text throughout camp and wishing me well and wishing me luck. So just thank you for having me on, and hopefully I'll keep you them accidental exclusives.
Absolutely, John. It is always a pleasure. Like I say, congrats on winning that title. I'm absolutely thrilled for you. I truly am, and we'll speak again very soon for sure.
Blinding. Thank you, Joey, mate. Appreciate it.
Okay, and this wraps up episode 186 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Ayaz Sumra has been Ayaz Sumra. I'd like to thank our 2 guests on this week's show, the new interim WBA champion of the world, Mr. John Ryder, and the reigning WBC Featherweight World champion, Mr. Gary Russell Jr. The prediction league currently stands at you, the listeners, on 97. Also, Ayaz is on 97, so it's a tie. The predictions for this week are as follows. Ayaz has gone with Dogbay on points. You, the listeners, have gone with Dogbay by knockout. Either way, I just hope Dogbay wins. A friend of the show, a nice guy. And you've both agreed you couldn't be split on Jarrett Hurd to win his fight against Julian Williams by knockout. So best of luck with that. I'd like to see Williams pull off the upset, to be honest. He's a friend of the show. There has been some news break since we've been recording the show. Hughie Fury's opponent has been announced for May 25th. It's going to be the undefeated Canadian Chris Norrad. Now, Chris Norrad has been a pro for 10 years, but he's only really had 1 fight per year for the last 7 years. He's been badly inactive. He's 35 years of age. He's only got 8 knockouts. He's 17-0, I believe. And the other big news, it is the fact that on July 13th at London's O2 Arena, earlier today, Frank Warren announced that his two young unbeaten heavyweight prospects will collide. Daniel Dubois against Nathan Gorman, a brilliant fight there for the British heavyweight title, which is vacant. It will be on the line for that one. But that is about everything, I believe. Thank you all for listening to this week's show. Remember to please leave us a review on iTunes if you do get a chance. We'll see you all again next week. But until then, take care.